Welcome to Adventure. Joining us today is Jamin Arvig, CEO of aiCommerce. Jamin is a values-driven entrepreneur and thought leader in the world of Amazon and multi-channel e-commerce. After doubling every year for 10 consecutive years, Jamin's company, AIC Brands, has developed into a team of strong leaders and committed associates who truly make a difference in the world. So thanks so much for joining us, Jamin.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to delve into aiCommerce and multi-channel e-commerce shortly, but let's first talk about you for a little bit. We know about your journey to this point thanks to your bio, but as we all know, that doesn't come as easily as it sounds. So tell us a little bit about some of the struggles that you face leading up to kind of scaling your business, becoming an entrepreneur, and do you have a favorite failure of yours?
Great question. I love thinking about failures in terms of a favorite. Our most glorious failure probably is our first bigger business that we built. We built 7 and 8 figure businesses. One of them got to $100 million valuation. Our two competitors and us were all about the same size. It's $100 million valuation. We know this because one sold for a little more than that. One sold for a little less than that. We decided to stay in the game. And we thought we had a good spot. We were enjoying it. We were making a difference in the world. We were helping people, and it wasn't about the money personally. And so there was really no reason to get out at that point. We just wanted to grow and make a bigger impact. It turned out that shortly after that time, there were a lot of things that changed in the world. There were people in China that had black hat tactics. There were problems that caused a lot of competition that hadn't been there previously. And then little by little, some of the black hatters turned into legitimate people that were competitors and actually providing a good product and not just winning only because of black hat tactics. Mm-hmm. But what happened at that point was it was too late. They'd already pushed us down. Amazon at the time was not responding quickly or easily with some of the issues that were very, legitimate concerns, counterfeit, black hatting with bad reviews, this kind of stuff. So later, though, after Amazon got better at those things, the tactics changed and became more legitimate, like I said, from these competitors. And at that point, the market price on some of our products, our biggest product line, had dropped from $30 to $8.
Oh my goodness!
So that would kill most businesses, right? It almost killed us. If we had adjusted 6 months earlier in some things, we would have dominated.
Yeah.
If we'd adjusted 6 months later, we would have been bankrupt. So we did adjust in time, but we had to rebuild the business. There was really no value. Mm-hmm. And so that was difficult. So what I learned from this failure mm-hmm. was that we need to be very objective about our differentiators. And this is one thing I spent a ton of time on with any brand that we're helping, and any brand any entrepreneur that I'm coaching or helping, because it's so easy to say, oh, that other company, that's just cheap Chinese junk, or whatever people use for the easy catchphrase. Ours has higher quality. Ours has this or that. But then we look at these products, and sometimes the other product actually has higher reviews, or mm-hmm. There may not be that much of true differentiation. And so I really look at, okay, what is the optimal, amazing, perfect, ideal differentiation that we could have in a particular product? And then let's phase it in, let's step it back and see, okay, what can we actually do quickly to have a little bit more differentiation? But in mm-hmm. any case, we need to be ruthlessly objective when we look at our own differentiators. And if we don't, there are much bigger risks than a lot of us think.
Yeah, there's that's really, really interesting to me. There's a few things that you said that I just kind of want to pull on a little bit more. One of the things that you mentioned was the valuation of your businesses. And I found it interesting that you said the reason that they're valued as such is because one sold at this and the other one sold at this. So I think it's really important for people to keep in mind that the value of anything is really what the market is willing to pay for it. So you can have your business valued in many, many different ways, but at the end of the day is, what is somebody going to pay for it? So I thought that was really interesting. One of the other things that you talked about is that differentiation. And I think, in our heads as entrepreneurs, we all know these things. Like, we know what makes our product better or what we think is unique about it. But I think the difficult part is translating that differentiation into either your ad space or product listing, and being really conscious of those things and making sure that everybody that doesn't know you and doesn't know your product is able to make those determinations just from looking at that listing for a matter of, 5 seconds or whatever it is.
Yeah, very true. Yeah,
Yeah.
100% agree.
So I think this next question is really intriguing just because I think it's super insightful as to what drives you as a person. So if you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you say?
Yeah, two things come to mind. So maybe I'll split it in 2.5 minutes each. But I think that the first is probably my personality trait on something that I do value greatly, and that is just dreaming big and having a positive outlook that there's so much good that can be done, and we can make such a positive impact if we really try and take that first step. So many people are afraid to take that first step or to be bold and aggressive and just go. And I love to see different areas, different cultures where that's the norm, like Sand Hill and the Bay Area, or certain areas in India where everyone is thinking entrepreneurially, whether they're on within a different company or on their own, they're just thinking entrepreneurially.
Mhm.
And it's exciting to see. But I think the default is not to think like that, and it can be hard. So I definitely love the idea of more people dreaming big, and I think that can help us all. That's the first thing. And the second thing is just on listening more. When we're talking about the whole world, I think of conflicts and problems and all the things that can and should be avoided and shouldn't be problems, but they are problems. And so much of this conflict happens because we're not listening first. We're not listening enough. And so I think we can all do ourselves a service by listening more.
Great answers. I think both of those answers would definitely benefit everyone in the larger sense. You certainly have a commitment to a social conscience, it seems like. And I think oftentimes people think being in business or being a successful entrepreneur and social awareness and social consciousness as two kind of separate things. And those are not mutually exclusive. Sounds like you've really been able to kind of tie both of those in together for success for yourself and sort of spreading that greater message as you are successful in your field.
Yeah, hopefully, I mean, there's a phrase, social entrepreneurship, and I think that can
Mhm.
be a goal. It should be a goal for all of us, and perhaps it's aspirational to an extent, but I think we definitely want to try that. I don't think we want to get caught in the trap where we're either business people or we're philanthropists. I think we can and should try to do good during the day, during each day, to the best we can.
Yeah. And I think that's really important. I mean, for me, that was one of my goals in this podcast was showing the humanity in what we do. Yeah, it is all about numbers to some extent, but further than that, there's people behind those numbers that have any one of 4 different burners going at the same time, family and social awareness and all of those things. And business isn't like the be all end all. So I think it's just really important to sort of draw that out from people. Do you have certain causes that you are just passionate about?
Yeah, I think I'm very faith driven. So I suppose that would be number one, or causes that can help people in that way. Number two would be helping uplift where people are in life. And so there's different ways of doing that. One of our businesses has been in water, and so there's a need all over the world for cleaner water. And so with a billion people that don't have access, if they do have access to that, when some of the basic needs are met, then they can rise up and do things like go to school or start businesses or what have you. So I think these types of causes are those that drive me the most.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, a lot of it too is just broadening your own life in ways that you truly see sort of the state of what the world needs. Before I kind of got into this landscape, I did social work for many, many years working with homeless families. And I can tell you that growing up, I did not experience that. My view of homelessness was whatever I saw on TV. And so I thought, oh, that's only in San Francisco. Like, I don't need to worry about that. But truly hits in every community. And that was just a real eye opener for me. And just hearing stories individually, one-on-one, you start to realize, oh, that's the issue, and that's the issue, and that's the issue. And certainly belied everything that I had previously thought were some of the issues for these But okay, so what has been going on in your life recently that you expected, and what's been going on that you hadn't quite expected?
In my life, or business, or industry, or what?
You can answer that in any way that you like.
I'll go industry. So in our industry, I think we've seen the progression in many channels over the years. We started in 2001, so in e-commerce. So we've been around a bit. We've seen many generations. The generations at the beginning of that time period seemed to be about 6 months, and then the world changed completely because
Mhm.
e-commerce was brand new. Similar probably to what AI is doing today, right?
Right.
So I think we've been through all these generations, and we've seen so many changes. We've seen the different channels that have appeared, and how they're, some of them work, some of them don't work long term. They're not sustainable. We see how the channels appear at first, and whether they work or don't work, they're more affordable at first,
Hmm.
and later on they get more expensive. So I think that's one of the things that we've seen over the last year or two, and beyond, is that Amazon has followed what all these other channels we've seen have gone through, which is that it's gotten more expensive, more difficult, of course, as that area has become more mature.
Sure.
So sophistication is required. It's more difficult to build a differentiated, sustainable, scalable business that is profitable during growth.
Right. Right.
So I think that's what has been expected. I think we've seen how product life cycles have come and gone. Every product has a life cycle, and throughout these channels. And so I think that's to be expected, that the product life cycle is getting shorter and shorter with the advancement of each of these new channels and methods. And now with AI, that's advancing it much further too. I think one thing that I did not expect is how quickly some of these AI tools are maturing. I actually thought AI would get more legs earlier.
1,000% agree with you. It is
Uh,
insane the speed at which
yeah,
new tools are popping up, and
yeah, it's great. It's exciting. I think I expected to start earlier and take longer, and it seemed like it wasn't that useful until last year, and then it became very useful very quickly. And
Mhm.
and now there's over the next year, it seems a lot of these tools are going to be merged together and be deployed in a way that's much easier. Maybe think of how search engines, for those of us that are old enough to remember that, search engines when they first began, even before 2000. And sometimes you had to think about a category, and you'd go into a category question, and you'd have a different search engine for different types of topics and things like that. So I think that's kind of where AI is. But when we get more to general intelligence, which we're getting very close to, it sounds like this year we may hit the inflection point where general artificial intelligence may supersede human intelligence. If that's the case, that's because a lot of these tools are being combined. And so that's happening more quickly than I thought.
So do you think that AI is, we know that it's being used for kind of peripheral things, but in the greater sense, when you're saying, AI intelligence may take over, do you think it warrants people being a little bit frightened of it? Because that seems to be a common theme when people talk about AI, that, it's iRobot.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it depends on the type of person. I think the types of people that don't like change should be very frightened. I think the people that embrace change and growth personally should be super excited. Think of the old adage with the horse and carriage and the cars, right? Some people were fighting against cars because they wanted the horse and carriage to stay. So
Sure.
if that's how we're looking at life, then yeah, we should be very afraid.
Yeah.
But
And it sounds like that's just a lack of imagination a little bit. So some of that fear factor and people that are afraid of change is really because they can't see the final vision, maybe, or maybe their final vision is a little dystopian. I don't know.
yeah, I think just like in the industrial era, when machines were making people more productive, this is making humans more productive, and that's really what's happening, right? It's not replacing people;
Mhm.
it's making people turn more to superhumans. Just one more level of productivity, just like what happened when machines were developed first. So if our skills will have to change as a population, our the types of roles we're taking on will change. Some roles will no longer be needed, but it's exciting to think about how the world will change here.
Yeah, I found it really interesting when you touched on just about the search engine and some of the ways that we had to find the information that we really needed. It started out in even Amazon with keywords. We had to learn how to ask for what we needed,
Right.
and I think the opposite is coming true with AI. I think AI is adapting to how we currently try to find what we need. So it's a little bit on the flip side of that, but definitely interesting. Going to be
Yeah,
interesting.
I think in a way it's similar though, because we do need to figure out prompt engineering skills, which is similar, right?
Yeah.
We've got to figure out how to prompt these tools and these systems, and you're right. I mean, the systems are going to keep getting better and better, so it'll be easier to prompt, but we'll still have to always prompt it with something. Uh,
Mhm. I'm
and
just going to think about it. I'm just going to think about it. And maybe
yeah,
we'll get to that point. We'll just have a thought pop in our head
yeah,
and
and
it'll
that's a
make sense.
prompt though, so that's great. But there'll be ways where that is possible, right? It's
Probably.
amazing.
I'm sure. So we started talking a little bit about multi-channel e-commerce. Why is it important to have a multi-channel strategy? If I'm on Amazon and I'm a successful seller, talk to me about that.
Yeah, I think we've seen again through all these generations the different types of channels and the ways people are trying to generate traffic. If we have just one area where we are generating traffic, for example, an Amazon listing, we are very, very vulnerable. And our valuation is much lower than if we are truly a brand. If we are truly a brand that is multi-channel, where people know us, a segment, it might be a tiny segment, but a segment knows us.
Hmm.
A target customer, an ideal customer profile knows our brand, what we stand for, what the benefits we're providing humanity, and that spills over into multiple channels. Now we've got something of value to the world and to an investor.
Yeah.
And so at this point, we've got something sustainable, it's scalable, it's differentiated. There are some barriers. If we look on the flip side and we're just an Amazon listing, this is a lot of what aggregators were depending on, that they would buy a listing, and a listing is very, very vulnerable. It can go downhill quickly.
Hmm. I think as Thrasio found out, right? He bought
Yeah.
all of
Yep.
those. So it sounds to me like, this is the difference between just being an Amazon seller and actually building a brand that's able to sustain market fluctuations. And the population right now, they're not in just one space. We literally have 5 different apps open on our phones at all times, right?
Yeah, and I think Amazon serves a great purpose for people to know what they want to buy. We need to be in that space. It's a huge space, and we need to play there. There are some brands, some big brands, feel they still don't need to be on there. I think they are on there, whether they want to be or not. So they do need to develop a great strategy that fits within their overall vision and overall corporate brand strategy.
Yeah.
But if they have Amazon optimized, that's great, but that's only one piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm not an Amazon seller, but I can tell you that I buy a lot on Amazon, and that's the first place I go. If you're not on Amazon, I'm not looking further. I may look at other channels, but I don't think I'm going to search out like your website. So it's almost like you kind of don't exist. There are definitely companies that I'm sure are forced into joining Amazon against their better judgment, but that's the state of the world we live in, I think, right now. So what's the biggest piece of advice you give to an e-commerce brand looking to grow?
I think the default for many people, certainly entrepreneurs that are maybe in the 6 and 7 figure size, and maybe 8 figure, oftentimes, is they want to know a quick tip or trick to double, basically.
Hmm.
And if someone can't provide that to them, that they're turned off, and they think, well, if you guys are no good, you can't help us, we're moving on. I actually think it's great to filter out prospects in that way. If a prospect really wants a quick tip or quick trick to do amazing things, they're usually not the type that are going to have sustainable value growth.
Hmm.
They're typically the type that had seen a bit of success. Maybe it was driven by hard work, maybe by luck, maybe by strategy, but in any case, they're not looking holistically really at how they can change the world. And so they probably won't be changing the world. And they probably won't have a strong valuation for themselves either. So what we really try to help people with is help make sure there is a strong vision. And so I encourage people, to answer your question, to create a strong vision that outlasts them and is very big. So 10-year
You're talking
plus.
like legacy status, somebody
Exactly.
leaving a legacy.
Exactly. Think like that. Think long term, how we're going to make a huge positive change, and then step it back from 100 years to 10 years. Think about you've heard the acronym BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal, perhaps, and how can we really do something amazing here? Now, and the reason it helps is not just because it makes us think bigger, that's good, but it also gets us more specific on really what are we trying to do in a big way. And then we can ratchet that back and say, okay, well, how can we do a little of that now? And so if we start with that vision, we can filter out lots of crazy ideas that we might have. So the person that says, how do we quickly grow? I need another product, or I need another this or that. Well, a lot of those other products or keywords or whatever they want will not even fit within their vision. So they'll just be throwing things against the wall, and most of these are going to fail. And they will fail. So to have that guiding vision is so important. And then from the vision, to create a strategy, a differentiated strategy that is really going to help them separate themselves and create value. So, and there's a lot of art and science to this. There is a method to the madness of creating a strategy with true differentiators and reverse engineering, what that looks like, so they can actually matter to the world and exist. Once they've got that strategy, they can start creating a plan. Long-term plan, midterm, and short-term plan. The short-term plan will be much more detailed, of course. Then after that, they can assign resources. And it's so easy for people to go in inverse order and not take the time. It's so easy.
I think that's probably the most common way of doing it.
It's right. And probably most of us know what I just said is true. Yeah. But it's still hard to do. It's hard. It's boring. We don't have time for, the biggest excuse is, the biggest challenge people say is, I don't have time. I just need more hours a day. I need to clone myself. And I get it for sure. Been there. But we need to get the clarity on the things I mentioned. And then we have time, actually.
And with AI, we have even more time, right, for some of those tasks that can be automated. But I think that's a great point. I think, and it's not dissimilar even to any company coming up with a mission statement, right? And then staying true to that mission statement, that being your overarching sort of message or goal that you want to achieve, and then breaking that down. We've heard many, many times about how so much of your work is going to be on, before you even launch a product, doing the proper research, spending that time, and really kind of making that commitment to your own brand to see it through.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think we're both speaking about the same general theme of, measuring twice, I suppose.
Right.
Before we're cutting and incorrectly. So if we're doing that before launching a product, that's great. We're going to be so much stronger. If we do that before we even have a plan, if we're going through this whole process before we even create the detailed plan, we're going to be so far ahead. And if I could, I'll share another failure, a bonus failure.
Please, yeah, this is your time.
We had
bonus failure.
Yeah, we'd grown significantly, but I had created our own operating system, management system, I should say. And it worked pretty well. I mean, it had gotten us there. We had been, I think we're at 40 million or so. So it done pretty well. But I think it was at that point when we got acquainted with some more tools and systems and coaching opportunities and advisory boards and these types of things that once I was aware of these, I thought it was great. We deployed all of these. We went all in, and it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per year to get some of these systems in place just for coaching support and facilitation and things like that. But
you're looking at it as an investment, right?
Yeah. And so it was a huge breakthrough. And the challenge is a lot of people don't have this. And so the things that I just went through that people need, whether they do it on their own, there's tons of books that have this, but there's a reason the book is $10 and the coach is $100,000.
Right.
And so, but a lot of people are not willing or able to spend 100,000 for the coach or 150 grand for an advisory board plus stock options or what have you. So, but it's critical. So I really implore everyone to figure out a way to either self-implement these things or find a full dedicated coach, or do something like we do where we kind of combine the two and we provide a hybrid method. But in any case, somehow make sure you've got these things in your company.
Well, so what was the failure? I didn't hear any bonus failure in that.
No. Well, I should have. We would have done much better, much quicker in this case if we had deployed these best practices. And yeah, it's easy for us, on New Year's resolution day, or if we buy the book for whatever our system is, we're going to deploy to say, cool, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But a huge part of it is, and I did learn this at some point, was there's a reason people hire a personal trainer, or there's a reason people hire a coach or a business coach. And so
accountability, right?
exactly. So I think that's very needed for most of us, certainly including myself.
Yeah. It falls in line a lot with something that we've talked about in the past is so many people, when they're starting a business, try to look at risk mitigation, right? So they're looking at all of the ways that this could go wrong and how am I going to address those ways with plan, B through Z or whatever. But, frequently what we don't plan for is success. And implementing some of those things and attaching that to your overarching, sort of mission statement. Growth is not scary. You can control your growth if you implement some of those changes, and you can plan for success in that way.
I fully agree. And I think if we start early, some people say, well, when should we start on some of these things? And we encourage people to start immediately, wherever they are. Wherever they are, it's already too late, but it's better than tomorrow. And so if they can start and get as much clarity as possible, it's gonna save them a whole lot of headache.
Okay, so Jamin, I'm a brand. I'm on one channel. I want to expand to multiple channels. How do I make that decision? Where, how, all of it?
Yeah, I think it's a great topic. I was speaking on this topic to a group of advanced sellers. I think everyone was 8-figure and above anyway, and they were asking these questions, and we were talking about one example. Someone in the audience said she launched over 30 channels the previous year.
Wow.
And she knew at that point that was maybe not the right approach. But I think it's good to, again, measure twice, cut once. And so I think a big part of it is looking at your current capabilities. So what got you here today? You were good at something. So what was that? Were you good at SEO? Were you good at paid search? Were you good at a new type of product? What exactly were you good at? Were you good at shipping quickly? Whatever it was, what are the things that are good capabilities today? Those are working for you in whatever channel you're in, presumably. So, and maybe not as well as you'd like, but at least you've got some traction because of those things that are working well. So how can we leverage those things, those capabilities in other ways, in other channels, in other geographies, with other products, et cetera? So I think that's good to think about what are your current capabilities, and then think about the channels that require those similar capabilities. So an obvious example is if you're doing well on Amazon.com as a marketplace seller, a lot of those things a lot of those capabilities that you've developed will translate over to a Walmart marketplace seller. Absolutely. So the Vendor Central will be different than Seller Central, but if you've got Seller Central expertise, some of those things would translate. That's a super high level, obvious example, but you can drill down and get some more specifics in that too. So I think looking at your current capabilities is helpful. I think looking at the targeted capabilities you want is also helpful. So when you're thinking about differentiators you want to acquire and build over time, some of those are going to require capabilities you don't have today. So if you want to go in that direction, okay, go ahead and build those, and what channels will be able to leverage those as well. So I think that there is a need to look at current and future capabilities. There's also a need to look at the new and added complexity.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, going to another channel isn't just increasing your sales. You're taking on a little bit more, labor on that end too. So
yeah, right. I think a lot of people look at marketplace as one group and direct to consumer as another group and brick and mortar as another group. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And you can break it down much further than that too. But I think that there is a lot of truth, and people that are good at one of those areas rightfully are hesitant to cross into the next one. They recognize there's a ton of new complexity. It's a different business. So I think that's good. And then once you are thinking about these things and you're thinking about the financial objectives and the financial considerations of each of these channels, you can start to create a staged plan. So we think this is very important. We do this for our brands, for other brands, as part of our planning process and strategic process and coaching process, and to make sure that we are doing this in a way that will set us up for success.
But all of those channels are just part of that, kind of giant flywheel that, feed each other. So, kind of doing the due diligence to make sure that you're successful with one that can feed into the other, that can increase your organic rankings. You'll probably see a boost in all of your channels if you can, make that happen.
Yeah. So you're commenting on a great consideration too, right? Which is how can you stage it in a way that's deliberately helping your cohesive plan? So
well said, much better than how I said it.
and you can take advantage of the halo effects. They're helping each other, and you can rise versus starting a brick and mortar shop in Ukraine, which may not tie in quite as much.
Right. That buzzword synergy that everybody talks about. So what's your advice to a brand looking to determine what sets them apart from other competitors? How would you start that process? If I was a brand, had a product, had some competition, which there's quite a bit, especially in certain niches on Amazon, what can help me determine my differentiation?
Well, I think to create a plan for differentiation is a critical part of your vision and strategy setting early on. So I think that's the right question to ask. We do like to address that early. And in creating a plan for differentiation, we try to figure out where are the competitors, where are the competitors not, and how can we find a white space that matters to the customer. So there's lots of Harvard case studies and other case studies that help look at these things, but you can look at the example that we talk about a lot. It's talked about in the market a lot is Southwest Airlines. So at the time, every airline was pretty good at everything. And Southwest said, well, there is a group of customers that want really good at a few things, and they don't care about pretty good at the others. They're okay with terrible at the others, but they want really good at these few things. And so they got really good at those few things. And one of those was low price and a fun atmosphere, and they could, part of it required them to turn planes fast and et cetera, et cetera. But the story. But if we're clear on what our target customer wants, if we've identified a target customer that wants something that the market is not serving, now we can determine a white space. We can find a white space, and with that, we can own a market, which is a bold statement, right? Because we're so used to thinking, how can we just get 1% of this big pie?
Market share. Yeah.
It's better though if we can try to think about how can we get 100% of this tiny pie, because then we can have a customer that knows us, that loves us. We can create a cult following. They're recommending us. And we can really own that white space. And once we do that, then we can go out from there and own adjacent white spaces as well.
Yeah. Because we really, at the end of the day, we probably could be everything to everybody, but that comes at a cost, right? So it's costing you your profitability. It might be costing you time-wise. If you're diversifying too much and not focusing on one or two aspects of your product. I'm going to bring it full circle with our conversation with AI. And I know some people are using AI to sort of collate all of the bad reviews from their competitors. So take, for example, you are selling headphones and you're using AI, and some of the reviews that are coming in is, all these headphones, they don't stay in my ears when I'm running, but yours do. You can now use AI to sort of identify those differentiating points for your product and add that to your list.
Yeah, it's great. It's smart.
So what's one final thought that you want to leave our listeners with? I have one follow-up question after this, but any parting remarks? Feel free to talk about aiCommerce, any new projects you're working on.
Well, I think just staying true to the theme and the topics we've already described together, which is the need to be very deliberate and making time to be deliberate, and finding accountabilities to help you stick to the plans that you're creating. It's so important. And so for us with aiCommerce, we recognize that so many people struggle with this. We bought a couple of companies, an events company and a education company, and created a community platform so we could provide that higher level coaching. We recognize that people really needed this, and we don't try to make any money on this. We just try to help get clarity for people, and then when they're ready and need more things, we can help them with more things. But we find it's such a breakthrough for people when we can just provide some type of accountability help, like you're saying, and some of this high level strategy facilitation and some of the guidance that people don't have ready access to, and we do it in a way that is much more affordable. So we came up with an innovative way to do it, instead of having the expensive dedicated way that we talked about, or having a self-implemented way.
It can get quite expensive.
Right. So the hybrid way is to have a group coaching set up so they get 80% of the value for a small fraction of the price. And then we're able to give them all the tools, walk them through the tool, help them with the tools, deploy the tools, and have the breakthroughs that come with that. And also they're able to get help from their own, personal advisory board, as well as coaching help to help them break through. So I think I encourage people to find that type of solution from somewhere. We certainly have it for those that are trying to break through, and for those truly that are trying to impact the world and not just look for a small tweak that hopefully is going to double their business magically.
Right. That sounds awesome. And I have to imagine their success is your success, right? So it must feel really good when you see somebody implementing some of the things that you're teaching them or showing them, and seeing it just kind of take off.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. This is what I love. I love to create and help create and help
I can
people grow.
tell. Definitely, your passion for that definitely shines. Passion for helping people. So as our last question, because this is the Adventure podcast, what's the biggest or best adventure that you've had in your life so far?
All right. Well, I don't know about biggest and best, but the one that I just came back from a couple of days ago is fresh in my mind, and people were using the word adventure on this. So I was able to cover many countries in Asia, all over. So it's on the way over, hit Miami, then Macau, then Singapore, and then Hong Kong. Or to say Macau, I meant Qatar earlier. Sorry, Qatar, Singapore, Hong Kong, then Shenzhen, and then Macau, Ningbo, Shanghai, Tokyo.
Wow.
LA. And so this was an adventure. And
yeah, that qualifies.
so we had, and there were many sub-adventures in here with the language barriers and cultural differences. It was quite interesting. But I think there's lots of great things for business and connections that were made, and relationships that we're able to build on together. So that was wonderful. I think one of my takeaways over and above that, though, was just to see all these cultures, all the cultures from the different religions, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, and Taoism, Buddhism, atheism, all these different perspectives, and overlaying those with the different work cultures and the different ways these groups are looking at life and looking at business. And it was fascinating to see this and to see the commonalities and the differences. And I guess right before the trip, the day before the trip, we had our family, 5 young kids at Disney World. And so one of the rides is It's a Small World.
There is that there.
Yeah, and it was fun to see how small the world is, and how we certainly can help each other across different cultures in different ways. And if we are dreaming big, and if we are thinking about really how we can help people and listening more, and helping each other succeed.
That sounds beautiful. It sounds like a beautiful trip. I am behind that 100%. I also am a big believer in finding those commonalities, It's our humanity that connects us. And I think just sort of finding that humanity in everybody. But it sounds like you're doing great things in the world. We're going to have to end for today, but if anybody wants more information, we're going to have the aiCommerce website linked down below in the show notes. And I'm sure Jamin would love for you to reach out if you have any questions at all. Thank you again for joining us. It was a great conversation. I, for one, learned a lot and feel very uplifted.
Thanks, Jeanette.
All right. Take care.
You too.